Past, year, Canelo Alvarez has stated one thing: I want to be undisputed super middleweight champion. Here's the chance. Sometimes you have to leave a little something on the table to get what you really want. How much is it worth to him to be undisputed? He's a great fighter. He's one of the best fighters of modern times. He's pound for pound king. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. He's done a lot of things. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, you're still thought to be in your prime. You have an opportunity now to add a very, very, maybe the most significant element to your resume that you've ever had, which is to be undisputed, very difficult in the four-belt era. And he's not doing it the easy way. He's going one by one through the weight class. So make a deal. Now, I understand you've got people that are there to handle your business and that maybe are smarter than you when it comes to the legalities and try to protect you in the future. And that's all well and good. But at some point, the fighter puts the foot down and says, make the fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope isn't why this fight isn't made.
I agree. I 100% agree. And you have to give Plant's side, or Caleb Plant, some credit here a little bit. I always have respect for the guys. I think he's a straight shooter. And for him to come out and say the things he said yesterday, he's not just going to sit back and say, yes, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, there's some absurd things in there. If that's true about the weight replacement,
that's one of the interviews done by Canobbio. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, but I thought that he had one of the best interviews on the entire YouTube as far as the whole situation goes. And I just thought it was crazy how the video only got 6,000 views. But given that the subject content that the video pertains, I thought that it would get way more views than that. So I'm going to leave the link to this video and to this channel so you guys can go watch the full thing. And so you guys can go support the channel, because I looked at it and he has some really great interviews, but not a lot of views. That's one of the things I said about boxing. It's funny like that. You get a channel that produces pure boxing, they hardly get any traffic. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you go over there and check that channel out, because he got a lot of great interviews, but a lot of people don't know about him. A lot of people haven't watched them. Some of his stuff got like 83 views and, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. But the reason why I picked this interview, because it's the best on the subject. And he did such a great job in his interview. He asked all the things that us as fans, or whatever you want to call yourself, that we was curious about. So he did very well in his interview, and we're going to talk about and go over some of the things that was said in the interview. So let's go ahead and get that started.
In this Canelo stuff, which was dominating this somewhat slow week, there was one thing that Plant came out and said. We can trust sources, we cannot trust sources, but when the fighter speaks, you have to take it with some type of validity. And Plant is a straight shooter. I think that's one thing fans could, give him credit for. He says that there was a lot of A-side demands from Canelo. He's cash cow, that's fine. One of them I took exception with. I think a lot of fans, even if they love Canelo, would also take exception with. And this is what Plant said. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, or however you want to take it, is that if this fight falls out, whether it's COVID, whether it's an injury on Plant's side, Canelo can pick a late replacement, and he still wants the $40 million guarantee that supposedly has been negotiated out between Fox and Team Canelo. That seems a little absurd. I kind of agree there with Plant. Have you ever heard those types of language, that type of language in a contract?
I have not.
That's one of the things I want to speak on right there. Out of all the years Dan Rafael has been in boxing, when he asked him, has he ever heard of that in contract negotiations, he said he has not. Just think of all the contracts he have seen, heard about, went through, set in on, was privy to, was informed of. He asked him, have you ever heard of that in any contract negotiations? And he says he has not. So the first thing we can do is eliminate that this is some kind of normality. All right? It's abnormal to the point somebody who's had a lot of information on contracts and seen contracts and whatever and whatnot, to the point somebody like him has never heard of it. It's unheard of until Canelo Alvarez team pulls it out the bag. But the one thing we can do right now is recognize that what Canelo is asking for is not normal, is not regular, and according to Dan Rafael, has been unseen and unheard of. Let's keep going.
Let's be honest, that's a negotiation type of thing you ask for. I think that anybody that has any notion of reality understands that if the opponent that you seek to fight and to unify the division for some reason is unable to perform, you don't get to keep the money. The fight has to go through, and if you end up fighting a different opponent, depending on the level of that opponent, there could be an alteration to your business side of the deal. So, that seems to be a little bit much.
For him to come out and say the things he said yesterday, he's not just going to sit back and say, yes, I'll do whatever you takes. Like, there's some absurd things in there.
At this time, Canobbio is being so honest. If he was a black dude, they would call him racist immediately. But already for just conducting this interview, they called him a hater. See, when you're a person of color and you talk about Canelo, you'll get hit with the racist shit. You're racist. But when you're not black and you talk about Canelo, you're going to be a hater.
That's true.
They always got to make something up for a reason for you to be accurately speaking about Canelo Alvarez. But as you can see, they already called him a hater, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Anybody who doesn't spit polish Canelo's family jewels is a racist and obviously a fucking hater. They're all these things, but the last thing that they could ever be doing on this planet to a Canelo Super Saiyan fanboy is tell the truth.
But the late replacement, that's more of a PBC thing more than a plant thing, but those go hand in hand. Let's just say this fight doesn't happen, and would not be shocked if it didn't happen. Some other viable opponents for Canelo Alvarez, in your opinion?
Well, if he's going to work with PBC, I'm not sure he would if the plant fight doesn't happen, but they have opponents that I would think could go in and fight him. Not necessarily in September. I was thinking like David Benavidez, although he's scheduled to fight in August. If Charlo were to move from middleweight up to super middleweight, that's a viable fight if he decides to stick with the zone and work again with Eddie Hearn. Certainly there is the prospect of, if he decides to, he could still try to make a third fight with Triple G and call it the weight class of his choosing. He could, try to not unify, but rather fight Demetrius Andrade, who's willing to move up in weight.
Oh, no, you didn't, Dan. No, you didn't. I can't believe you just brung up Demetrius Andrade. You talking about the weird guy? You know what I'm saying? That dude? Oh, man. You trying to get them to poison your meatball sub. Straight up. They don't like to hear Andrade name. It's like nails on a chalkboard to them. They might chase you down the street with knives and pitchforks. They hate that. Yeah, that could have been an option for them. And guess what? It still is an option for them. But just like back then, they still don't want that fight right now. Even though I've already pointed out, if you guys wanted Undisputed so bad, you had an opportunity where you didn't need to fuck with Al Heyman to do it. But you just didn't like the fact that Demetrius Andrade was weird. And he's a horrible fighter. He's a horrible fighter. And you want to know the funny thing about this whole 40 million situation? Ain't that the same shit he said about Andrade? I know. You want payday. You want payday. You want payday. So that's what Al Heyman is saying to Canelo. I know what you want. You want payday. You want 40 million. If you don't fight, blah, this, please, this, and that. Oh, so you want payday. So now Canelo, now you want payday. That's all I'm going to play from this interview. I don't want to take too much from it because I still want you to go over there and check it out because it was a really good interview, and I want people to get their credit and whatever and whatnot. But I just find that hilarious. He told Andrade he wants payday, you want payday. But it looks like, to me, Canelo's the one that wants payday. And what Dan Rafael said was right. And this is what it all boils down to at the end of the day. So you can skip all the other shit. This is the shit that counts right here. At the end of the day, if Undisputed is so important to you, the Canelo fan, and if it's so important to Canelo's team, make the sacrifice. We've already established that what you asked for is not normal. Okay. So it's not crazy for anybody to tell you to throw that request out because it's unheard of in boxing. Period. Okay. Now, if you could do that, and if you want undisputed, go ahead and throw that out and go get undisputed. Floyd Mayweather had to take a pay cut and not get paid what he thought he was supposed to get paid in order to get Oscar De La Hoya in the ring. Why? Well, he knew he could beat Oscar De La Hoya. He figured it was worth it. Well, some of you boxers still got to do that shit. Y'all don't want to give up nothing. If it's so important to your legacy, just go ahead and just make the sacrifice. Give that shit up. And if it's so important, you, the fan, request that Canelo, man, Canelo, let that shit go. You can beat this guy. I want to see it. But y'all will never put no pressure on Canelo to do anything like that. Because it's not about Canelo actually being the best and fighting the best. It's about appearing to be the best and appearing to fight the best. But do they actually authentically want Canelo to own that? Obviously, no. Because he could have got undisputed years ago.
Past, year, Canelo Alvarez has stated one thing: I want to be undisputed super middleweight champion. Here's the chance. Sometimes you have to leave a little something on the table to get what you really want. Mm-hmm. How much is it worth to him to be undisputed? He's a great fighter. He's one of the best fighters of modern times. He's pound for pound king. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. He's done a lot of things. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, you're still thought to be in your prime. You have an opportunity now to add a very, very, maybe the most significant element to your resume that you've ever had, which is to be undisputed. Very difficult in the four-belt era, and he's not doing it the easy way. He's going one by one through the weight class. So make a deal. Now, I understand you've got people that are there to handle your business and that maybe are smarter than you when it comes to the legalities and try to protect you in the future, and that's all well and good. But at some point, the fighter puts the foot down and says, make the